Hello, how are you? Today we shall discuss about characteristics of respiratory surfaces. You will be guided by me, Mr. Juma Nyamawi of War Girls Secondary School. Now, during our previous lesson, we discussed about different examples of respiratory surfaces. Do you still remember them? Can you mention a few? Give examples of respiratory surface and where the organism lives. Yes? Now, probably you might have talked about the cell membrane, like in amoeba. You might have talked about the entire body surface, that is the skin, like in earthworm. You might have talked about the gills, like in newts and tadpoles and fish. You might have talked about the tracheal system, like in insects. You might as well have talked about the lungs, as in mammals, birds, and reptiles. So because we have refreshed, let us now discuss the characteristics of all these respiratory surfaces. All the respiratory surfaces have got a number of characteristics, modifications that facilitate gaseous exchange to occur effectively. The first characteristic is that they are moist to dissolve respiratory gases during diffusion. This enables that the gas diffuse faster in solution form. So most of the respiratory surfaces have got a thin film of water on them. This ensures that the respiratory gases dissolve so that they can easily diffuse into the cells of the organism. Number two, they are thin to create a shorter distance for rapid diffusion of respiratory gases. That is, they are usually 1 cell thick, very thin. Okay? This reduces the distance traveled by the respiratory gases across them, we shall see. Another characteristic is that they have a large surface area in order to ensure maximum gaseous exchange. Majority of them have got large surface area. These facilitate rapid diffusion of respiratory gases. Okay, for instance here, if you talk about the tracheal system, the tracheoles are numerous. This increases surface area for gaseous exchange. If we talk about the lungs, they have got numerous alveoli. I think you're able to see here, they have got numerous alveoli to increase surface area for gaseous exchange. So in a nutshell, we are saying that the respiratory surfaces have large surface area in order to ensure maximum gaseous exchange. Another one is that they are highly vascularized. This means that they are well supplied with dense network of blood vessels. This is to ensure that there is transport of absorbed gases rapidly and to create high diffusion gradient. Okay? So, these respiratory surfaces are supplied by a dense network of capillary. Hence, we say they are highly vascularized. So, now, another characteristic of respiratory surface is that they have got a high concentration gradient. There is usually a concentration gradient to permit rapid diffusion of respiratory gases across them. So these are the various characteristics of respiratory surfaces. So, what have you learned? about characteristic of respiratory surfaces. Why are the respiratory surfaces moist? Why is it that they are thin? Why is the reason as to why respiratory surfaces have got large surface area? Okay. And why do you think respiratory surfaces are usually highly vascularized? In order to transport absorbed respiratory gases. Good. So far so good. I think we can discuss another thing. Let us now discuss about mechanism of gaseous exchange in protozoa. Now, with me here is a diagram of a protozoan. A protozoa. What do you think this organism is? Good. Probably you have said it is an amoeba, and that is the answer. Now, how do gaseous exchange occur in amoeba? The diagram illustrates that you are able to see oxygen moving in, carbon dioxide getting out, oxygen moving in, carbon dioxide getting out. Okay? So, it is important to note that inside this protozoa, like amoeba, respiration occurs. Okay? So, unicellular organisms, these are organisms which are made up of only one cell, have got large surface area to volume ratio. They have got large surface area to volume ratio. Because of that, they do not have any specialized respiratory organ, but instead, gaseous exchange occur just across their entire body, that is, across the cell membrane. Their bodies are made up of only a single cell. So how does gaseous exchange occur in this particular organism? Inside the cell here, respiration occurs. Respiration produces carbon dioxide. The concentration of carbon dioxide in the cell is higher than the surrounding medium, that is water. Therefore, it diffuses out by the process of diffusion. Now, for respiration to take place, oxygen is needed. So, the surrounding water has got a higher concentration of oxygen than inside the cell. Therefore, oxygen diffuses into the cell by the process of diffusion. That is how gaseous exchange occurs in unicellular organisms like the protozoa such as amoeba. Other organisms that have got a similar mechanism include the paramecium. Name others. Probably you have talked about chlamydomonas or plasmodium, etc., etc. So we are saying here that protozoa such as amoeba carry out respiration inside the cell. It uses oxygen and releases carbon dioxide. There is a higher concentration of oxygen in the surrounding water than in the cell. Oxygen therefore diffuses across the cell membrane from the surrounding into the cell. On the other hand, carbon dioxide in the cell is at a higher concentration than in the surrounding, and it diffuses out across the cell membrane. So this is the mechanism of gaseous exchange in protozoa. So what have we learned today? Say, I have learned that, and then you finish. You have learned that unicellular organisms have got large surface area to volume ratio, that they do not have any specialized organs, that gaseous exchange occurs across the cell membrane by diffusion. You have also learned that oxygen is needed for respiration, and carbon dioxide is produced as a byproduct of respiration. Inside the amoeba, there is higher concentration of carbon dioxide than outside the surrounding water. Therefore, carbon dioxide diffuses out. On the other hand, oxygen in the surrounding water is highly concentrated than inside the cell. Therefore, oxygen moves into the cell by diffusion. So, our lesson will end there today. Let us meet in the next lesson. Have a nice time. Bye.